everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Krista. I'm an international mama of two, a dental hygienist turned midwifery student, and here on my channel I talk about all things motherhood, midwifery, pregnancy, and childbirth education. So if these things are of interest to you, please follow along and get ready to birth and bloom. Hello, welcome back. So what are we talking about today in this video? We are going to be talking about the top 10 tips that I have for you to help you achieve your unmedicated natural birth. So as many of you may know, if you've watched my previous videos, my first birth was a medical induction. I had all of the things. And my second birth, I decided to go 180 and have a natural unmedicated birth at a freestanding birth center with midwives. So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about some of my top 10 tips that I used to mentally prepare and physically prepare to have an unmedicated birth. So without further ado, let's get into it. So my list is not going to be in any particular order except maybe 1 and 2. So number 1 on my list is know your why. Why do you want to have a natural unmedicated birth? I want you to turn in, focus in, and really think about why you want this particular type of birth experience. No one else can answer that question except you. So I can tell you for my own personal reasons, the reason why I chose to have an unmedicated birth was because shortly after my first daughter's birth experience, I knew that I needed to work in the birth world. I had a strong calling to become a midwife. And for myself personally, I felt like it was really important for me to experience a normal, natural, physiologic birth where we did as minimal interventions as possible. That way, when it became my time to be the midwife, I can walk and serve my clients and my laboring, birthing moms and have been in their shoes to know what they're experiencing through the trenches of labor, through the bliss of labor, through the pain of labor. I wanted to be able to fully relate and know what it was like to have a normal, natural birth. So for me, that was my why. I encourage you to really look within and figure out what your why is of why you might want to have an unmedicated birth. Why? Maybe you want to experience what labor and birth is like, completely undisrupted as nature and God designed it. Maybe you feel like it's the best decision for you and your baby, and that's your why. It's different for everybody, but I encourage you to go off of what your guiding compass is in deciding why you want this unmedicated birth. So that's number 1. Number 2, which I think is also very important in achieving your natural birth, is where you're going to give birth and with whom. So what do I mean by that? It is most common now for women to give birth in the hospital, but if you want an unmedicated birth, why would you choose to give birth in the hospital? This is a very multi-layered question, and this is not really for you to be answering right in this moment, but it is something to think about and consider. If you truly want an unmedicated birth, why are you going to choose to put yourself in a setting where pain medications, the epidural, and anesthesiologists, nurses are going to offer and maybe encourage you to take these medications? So that's just a little food for thought. So if you want an unmedicated birth, it's really worth considering having a home birth or a freestanding birth center birth. Those are called community births. So the reason I say this is because you know that there's not an anesthesiologist right down the hall from your bedroom. There's not an anesthesiologist right down the hall in your birth center. So because of this, many women that choose to have an unmedicated birth are choosing a birth setting and a care provider that are going to support you to let that labor and birth experience unfold naturally and minimize any medical interventions possible. Can medical interventions happen in the home setting or the birth center setting? Yes. But they're not necessarily going to be like what you're thinking of in the hospital setting. Maybe your labor has stalled, your midwife is talking to you about potentially breaking your waters to get labor kind of revved up and continuing on again. That is a non-medication route to encourage labor to continue to progress without essentially transferring to the hospital setting to augment with Pitocin or something like that. So I really want you to think about what you want for your birth and imagine where that this birth is going to take place. Can you have an unmedicated natural birth in the hospital? Yes, of course you can. But it may be more of a challenge if your practitioner, your midwife or doctor or nurses around you don't see unmedicated births very often. They may not know how to support you in going through your labor contractions. They may best feel like they can help you manage by offering pain medication. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if it's not something that you want, I strongly encourage you to think about what all of your options are when choosing your healthcare practitioner and your birth setting. So that's number 2. Number 3 is getting educated. It is so very important to educate yourself throughout your entire pregnancy. God designed pregnancy to be long for a multitude of reasons. Pregnancy feels really long, especially at the end or if you're really sick in the beginning of it. But use the length of your pregnancy to really educate yourself about what you want, about what your options are, and about normal physiologic birth. So when I keep referring to physiologic birth, that is just the natural process of birth, okay? So this is without intervening. It's how birth would unfold naturally on its own. So I encourage you to either take an online course, take a Lamaze class, find a birth educator in your community that does childbirth education courses. But nowadays there are so many amazing options out there. But I encourage you to find a childbirth education class that resonates with you and resonates with the vision that you have for your birth, because some tend to be a little bit more medicalized if they're maybe hosted in a hospital, and some may be a little bit more centered around like what it would be like to have a home birth, a unmedicated birth, a normal birth. So I definitely encourage taking a childbirth education class to get yourself prepared. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4 is a big one. Number 4 is all about what we allow into our mind and mentally preparing for childbirth and the birth experience that we desire. So if this is like your 2nd, 3rd, 4th pregnancy, you know that when you're pregnant, you are very sensitive. You feel sensitive to other people's thoughts and opinions and experiences, and that serves us, but we want to watch what we are consuming. So during your pregnancy, I encourage you to consume the birth stories that feel positive, that resonate with you. We have all heard the horror stories, and it's tragic for the women and their babies that have had traumatic births. That happens. But amazing, beautiful, empowering, positive births also occur. They occur all the time. I have had 2 very positive birth experiences. So I encourage you to find the social media accounts that resonate with you, to find the books, the podcasts, the YouTubers, people that talk about positive birth experiences and look at birth as a normal life event, and are going to help reprogram your subconscious mind to look at birth as what it is, a potentially beautiful, life-changing, transformative moment that is one of the most impactful periods of time in your whole life, okay? So reprogramming our subconscious mind to get all the ick out and just help you prepare for the birth experience that you want. So what could that be? There are some amazing books out there. Anyone that's sort of in the midwifery world knows that Ina May is a massive big seller. So Ina May was an amazing midwife. She has multiple books that many women will read to help prepare for a natural birth. That's one example. You could watch a couple documentaries, docuseries. The Business of Being Born is like an iconic one. I encourage everyone to watch that documentary. Another good one is Why Not Home? That's a documentary film about why not? Why are we not choosing home birth for normal low risk pregnancies? And in that film, it follows physicians, doctors, nurses that are choosing a home birth over the hospitals that they even work at. So that's a really interesting one. Podcasts, there are amazing birth podcasts out there. My absolute favorite is Birthing Instincts podcast. That is with Dr. Stuart Fishbein and midwife Blyss Young. They are an amazing yin and yang that give a really balanced view. And yes, they are both home birth attendants. However, Dr. Stu worked in the hospital system for literally decades, so he has a really good balanced view about both worlds. Another podcast I used to listen to was the Birth Hour podcast. And I will say the Birth Hour podcast is very good. I listened to a ton, probably hundreds of episodes, but you do want to focus on the ones that tend to be more positive. So they'll share everything under the sun of how birth can go, but I encourage you to look for the titles that seem to be more uplifting, seem to be positive, and let that be what seeps into your subconscious, okay? And then again, on social media, follow midwifery accounts, follow midwives, follow moms that have had really amazing births and have shared it publicly. You know, look for those accounts that are going to support natural birth and yeah, just what resonates to you and feels good to you, okay? So that's number 4. Number 5 is building your birth team. This matters a lot, okay? So whoever you invite into the birth room is going to affect things, whether you realize it or not. We all carry our own energy. Say, for example, you invite your mother-in-law who you love, but is a little, whatever the issues may be. But for an example, let's say you invite your mother-in-law to attend your birth and is in the birth room. Maybe she has some fear about birth. Maybe she had a traumatic birth and is not intentionally bringing that energy into the room, but you feel it. She's putting it out there. Your midwife or doctor is feeling it. So maybe this person is not the best choice to have in the birth room, because unfortunately, whoever is in the birth environment in your birth room is going to impact how your labor is flowing. So something to be very mindful of. Choosing who is going to be at your birth very wisely, okay? And in my opinion, less is more. I think having your husband or your partner there, and then whoever your practitioners are, or hiring a doula. So last week's video, I talked about all of the benefits of hiring a doula. I had a doula in my second birth because I wanted to have my team ready to support me and back me in achieving my goal. And that's what happened. So I'm extremely thankful to my doula, my husband, my wonderful midwife. So I had the birth experience that I wanted. Okay, so that's number 5. Number 6. Let's talk, this is a bit, some of these are slightly repetitious, but number 6 is, once again, preparing the mind, because your mind is more than half the battle, okay? There's physical sensations of labor, but your mind is so important with the success and the outcome of your birth. Okay, so what I did for my second pregnancy was I practiced hypnobirthing. I practiced meditation. The app that I used was Christian Hypnobirth. You don't have to be Christian to use it. It's a really lovely app that has multiple different tracks and positive affirmations that you can do while you're walking, while you're doing dishes, while you're resting, while you're laying down and meditating. So I literally listened to Christian Hypnobirth like months and months and months. I found was very helpful to me. There's women that will listen to it throughout their whole labor. For myself, because my second labor was very quick, I remember listening to it in my headphones on my drive down to the birth center. But then once we got there, my labor moved fast and I didn't have it like playing in the background, but some people choose to. So you don't have to do hypnobirthing, but it's a nice tool to help, once again, reprogram our subconscious mind to tune out all the programming that we've had since our own birth, from media, from movies, from shows, from, bad stories that have been passed through generations. This is gonna help reprogram our mind, think of pain a bit differently, maybe talk about contractions as waves, and just helping the mind mentally prepare for a positive, empowering birth experience, one that you are an active participant in and not one that it's just happening to you. So hypnobirthing was really helpful to me for sure, and meditation, and just getting birth affirmations right, getting your mind right, because it is a vital part to being able to achieve a natural birth. Okay, number 7 is talking about some coping techniques that we can do in labor that don't include medications. So, what are some obvious things? Obvious things are knowing that we use movement in labor, changing of positions in labor, using gravity. These are all things that, one, help with the contraction sensations, but also help the baby properly position themselves to be born, help open your pelvis and get baby in the proper position to allow that descent, that effacement, dilation for baby to be born. So for my first birth, I remember just swaying, and my husband was kind of behind me. My second birth, the majority of my labor, I was in the shower, swaying and just moving with my body. And then before I got into the birth tub for my delivery, I was kneeling at the edge of the bed and kind of just swaying my hips back and forth. So movement is very essential when you are having an unmedicated birth. Gravity is your friend, movement is your friend, changing labor positions is your friend. Okay, so some other things. If you have your husband or partner or birth doula with you, they can do something called counter pressure, where they're kind of squeezing on your hips, maybe jiggling you a little bit. These are all techniques that are gonna help relieve some of that contraction sensation and pain. Maybe they're using something called a rebozo, which is essentially like a big cloth or blanket that they can wrap around their tummy and kind of jiggle it. So that jiggling is a bit of a distraction from the sensations and really just helps, like, you can rest your belly into the rebozo. You may see other people, they will use a fine-tooth comb like on their palm and they'll squeeze it. So same thing, distractions to the mind, that sensation is traveling to the brain quicker and is gonna help reduce the sensation of the uterine contractions that you're feeling. So many women will hold on tight to combs during an unmedicated birth. Something else that you may have seen is the TENS unit. So the TENS unit is essentially these little pads that you place on your back, and they have this little electrical impulse. I personally do not have experience with using this and haven't seen it hands-on, but the same kind of thing. It's using this electrical sensation to kind of distract the body and the mind from the contraction sensations that you're experiencing. If you are working with midwives, there's a technique called sterile water injections, where they can essentially give you a tiny little injection of sterile water into your back around your pelvis. Same thing, distraction of the mind. There's different mechanisms that's gonna help relieve the pain of the contractions that you're experiencing. Massage is another big one. massaging the mama, massaging her feet, her shoulders, her legs, her tummy, her back, any of those things. That is really going to help mama in her body, relax her, and allow that labor to progress. Other people will use essential oils, aromatherapy. You can have a diffuser. You can have your doula or your husband kind of put under your nose to give you a good whiff. So these are all examples of more holistic options to dealing with the labor contraction sensations. Okay? So number 8. Number 8 is practice and visualize what your birth is going to look like. I know some of this may sound a little woo-woo to some, but from firsthand experience, I can tell you that these things work. They worked for me, they work for many other women, and I just want you to be open-minded about what you can do to best prepare yourself for your unmedicated birth. So for me, I had a clear vision of what room I was going to be giving birth in. My birth center had a couple room options, and I wanted the mountain room. So I imagined myself in the mountain room. I imagined myself with the doula that was on call, which ended up being the doula on call, Jess. And I imagined and visualized what this birth was going to look like, how I was going to handle it. And yeah, was it exactly how I imagined? No. But was it pretty close? Yes. So like manifest, baby, pray, do whatever you need to do to get yourself in the direction that you want to be and make it become your reality, okay? It's like all we can do is best prepare ourselves, and things absolutely can happen and do happen. But if we just say, oh, I have no control at all, then like what good is that? It's not, you're gonna just be at the mercy of whoever you're giving birth with. We can take radical responsibility for our births, accept whatever the outcome may be, but we can do what we can do to help achieve the birth that we are desiring, okay? So that's number 8. Number 9 is, we talked about this already, was just utilizing movement, utilizing labor positions. So this is where working with your practitioners is going to be really helpful. If they can feel or sense that your labor has stalled a bit, they may recommend a different position. If you're in the hospital, some nurses are absolutely incredible and they will act more like a doula and give you recommendations of, okay, maybe let's just go sit on the toilet, allow the pelvic floor to open, allow that dilation to occur. Or maybe you are having a home birth and you're working with a midwife and doula and they say, okay, well, I think right now it would be a good time to go on hands and knees or rest in a sideline position, or whatever they see is happening in the labor. They will help you figure out which positions are going to allow for your labor to progress and in the best way possible there. So utilizing position changes and movement like we talked about, okay? So that's like such a massive benefit to having an unmedicated birth, is that you are not just chained and stuck on a bed. When you have an epidural, in most cases, unless it's like a walking epidural or a very, very light epidural, you are stationary in bed. And nurses will generally flip you kind of from side to side to get some movement in the pelvis. They'll give you a peanut ball most likely, and that's kind of to help encourage, once again, the opening of the pelvis to allow baby to continue to descend. Sometimes you can sit up and kind of prop up in like a queen position. I don't know what they call it, but you can be sitting up with like a lighter epidural. But regardless, when you're wanting to have an unmedicated birth, movement is key. Key. Okay. And the last one, number 10, is utilizing hydrotherapy. So hydrotherapy is fancy for water. Okay, so I recommend in early labor taking a nice shower, hot water coming down your back is really, really nice. In early labor in general is your opportunity to really rest and kind of mentally prepare for the road ahead. And then a lot of women, if you're going to have an unmedicated birth, depending if you're in the hospital setting or at home or at a birth center, can utilize tubs, the birth tub. So many midwives refer to using a birth tub as the aquadural. So the aquadural is because it's going to help with pain sensations. It's going to let the mother feel more buoyant and calm and relaxed in her body. And it gives you a bit of sense of privacy because you're just not exposed to the world. You do feel like you're kind of contained and covered up in a way. Yes, water is clear, so they can still see what they need to see, but it does give you the sense of some privacy, relaxation, the warmth, the movement. Really, really, really nice. So if you want to utilize water in your labor, I really recommend it. And same thing, if you want a water birth, you're already mentally prepared to be laboring in water. Yeah, so I think those are the top 10 recommendations of what I did for my second birth. And take it or leave it. You know, not all of these things may resonate with you, and that is completely fine. But I hope that these top tips are helpful in some way. In my description of this video, I will put some of my top people that I love to follow on social media, on Instagram or podcasts, some of the books that I love, and some of the documentaries that we talked about. So if you haven't already, please like, please share, please subscribe to my channel. It really is helpful to me to help get the word out. I appreciate it so much. And if you're not already following me on Instagram, please hop over there. My Instagram is Birth and Bloom. So I'm wishing you well. I hope that you have the birth that you envision and work so hard for. And it is absolutely possible, you guys. So whatever you can put your mind to and pray, meditate, manifest, whatever you want to do, it is absolutely possible to have the birth that you desire. So I hope this is helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.